Hey everyone, this is Colton with Grand Valley Sporting Goods, and today we're going to be going over the new lineup for Mathews for 2026. As you guys might have seen, they launched today. We're probably going to post this video tomorrow just because, we got these bows today and I can only produce videos so quickly. But without further ado, this is the brand new Arc 34 from Mathews. And they have changed quite a bit on this bow, which I'll get to here in a second, but it's not very often to where companies are doing kind of almost a complete scrap and reboot of their bow. Typically it takes 5 or 6 years. They're maybe tweaking a cam here, tweaking a limb there, maybe changing up the riser a little bit or adding a tuning feature. But this does have some similarities to the lift, but it still is a completely different bow. A couple of guys at the shop mentioned, and I agree, it's almost like a title and a lift kind of combined together to make this bow. Just very similar with how the riser is and limb angles and everything like that. So let's just jump into the specs real quick. So IBO rating for the 34 is 343 feet per second, and that's IBO, not ATA. So if you stick in the video, we're gonna do an actual speed test on this at 30, 29, and 28 inches, but 70 pounds, 350 grain arrow at 85% let off. I just chose those settings if this is the first time you've seen our bow reviews, just because it's a more common setup. Mainly, I mean, not shooting a 350 grain arrow, obviously, but an 85% let off, 70 pounds, just because that's what our average consumer is going to run. We have a handful of 80s in there, but we're talking 90% of our customer base, and I'm sure that's the same nationwide, is going to be running an 85% let off bow. So anyways, brace height of 6.5 inches, physical weight of 4.3 pounds, so right around the same as the lift. Axle length of exactly 34 inches. Draw weight options, so they still have their same switch weight mod system that the lift did. So you get 5-pound increments from 55 all the way up to 80 pounds. You still get 10 pounds of adjustment in your limbs. So if you're, say, just getting into it, or maybe you've been shooting 60 pounds for a long time because that's what your bow maxes out at, and you want to work up to 70, that still gives you the ability to back off the limbs, only have one mod set, and be able to work up to 70 or, say, work up to 80 pounds. But you still want the goal of the limbs being maxed out because that's where you get the best efficiency. Now, quick side note, we tested this a handful of years back before the switch weight mods were even a thing, to where we took the same bow, same setup, draw length and everything, but took a 60-pound bow and maxed it out, and then took a 70-pounder and back it down to 60 pounds and shot it through the chronograph, and the bow that was 60-pound limbs maxed out was 18 feet a second faster while pulling the same weight. So there definitely is an efficiency difference there, but being the fact that these mods run $65 a pop, it's not something that you kind of want to constantly jump up in 5-pound increments every couple months. So yeah, they also came out with a SWX-Z mod, or a smooth draw mod, if you will, and that's really cool. Now I'll always say, like, and I've said in the videos in the past, like, draw cycle to me isn't really a huge factor, unless it's a cam cycle that really loads up super hard and then dumps really hard. Generally, the little, humps and draw cycles, like, you'll get used to that. You'll develop a muscle memory to that. And I know, because I've shot, speed bows in the past. I've owned speed bows in the past, and they're super aggressive at first, but back in my younger days, gained 20 feet a second. So, I'm gonna go that route, and just over time, I got used to that draw cycle, and it felt really smooth. But we do get quite a few people to where, maybe they've had a past shoulder injury, or maybe they're a little bit older and their main focus, because they want to stick with a compound bow, is they need a smooth draw cycle. So it's really nice that Mathews came out with that option just to get although a little bit smaller customer base into their bows, because if somebody was going to complain when testing out a Mathews, it was just that little hump on the end of that draw cycle. But you know, I've shot Mathews in the past, and frankly, you get used to that. So anyways, continuing the specs here, let off percentage of 80 or 85% mods, draw length range of 26.5 to 32 inches. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's dive into the changes here real quick. So let's just start with the riser, because they changed that quite a bit. Again, some rough similarities to the lift, but they just got what I believe is a 5-axis CNC machine. So they're able to shave more weight off of this thing, or shave extra metal off of this thing. That was the same thing with a lift. I believe it was a 4-axis machine. And when I saw that, I'm like, how can you shave any more metal off this thing? Because I'm no engineer by any means, but from the looks of it, like, any important structure of the riser was in there and any excess metal was out, but it looks like they achieved that by taking even more metal out of this riser. So I don't have a lift here for side-by-side comparison, but like this little pocket here had a support bar, you know, like same thing for down here. Cuts are a little bit bigger, a little bit different. So a little bit wider, a little bit thinner, I think here. So they did change it up quite a bit and shave quite a bit of metal off of this thing. So that's pretty cool. New limb pocket design, new roughly limb design. So similarities to the lift. They kind of changed the angle a little bit to be more parallel versus past parallel. Really what they said is just because of this new riser design, that's where they found peak efficiency as far as speed, vibration reduction, stuff like that. But a more forward-facing limb, and you'll see this in the target bows, the main reason for like a parallel or past parallel limb system is less hand shock and vibration to it, and they tend to be a little bit faster. So with this being a little bit more of a forward-facing limb, when I shot it personally, I think it just holds a little bit better, and that's what you gain with a slightly forward-facing limb. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and I didn't really notice a lot of difference between vibration between the lift and this bow. Slightly new cam system. It's going to have similarities to the lift itself, but it does have a slightly different contour to it. And then they also added these weights in here. My assumption is just to help out with speed, especially at draw lengths that aren't 30 inches. And you'll see here when we do the speed test with these. So we test them at a 30, 29, and 28 inch draw, just so we can see the cam efficiency and just kind of where it peaks and it kind of slows down. And then we test them at 70 pounds, 350 grain arrows, so basically 5 grains per pound, but at an 85% let off, where most would test at 80. The reason why we do 85 is the large majority of our consumers are gonna shoot the bow at an 85% let off. There's a handful that do 80s. At least that's the thing here in Michigan. Out west, say it could be maybe slightly different, but in general, most people are shooting at 85%. So we just wanted to make it a little bit more of a realistic comparison, if you will. So stay in tune for the end of the video where we show that. And then we're also going to test these new mods. So anytime, whether we show it on here or not, a bow company comes out with a speed mod option, or like Bowtech with their performance setting and comfort setting, we always test that just to see what you're gaining and what you're losing with that. So we're just going to do that test. We're not going to record it with the rest of the bows, but just so you guys can see how much of a difference there is going with the smooth draw mod versus the regular switch weight mod that's in it. Still have the bridge lock mount for the sight, integrated mount for the rest. And what they changed was basically your stabilizer mounts, which is a pretty cool feature. So new bridge lock stabilizer, they gave you the option to be able to run a angled stabilizer. And if you're like me, I run an angle stabilizer just because, especially with a longer stabilizer, for one, if you have a longer stabilizer and you put more weight on there, when you go to full draw, it tends to kind of sway a little bit. And the faster you can acquire the target, really the more accurate you're going to be generally. So lowering that center point of gravity helps with that, but also it holds a little bit better in my opinion. But also what they added was a new integrate system for the bridge lock sidebar mount, which I think this is a super cool feature. So normally on the more modern bows, and at least the past 5 years or so, you had a burger hole back here to where you can put your sidebar mount, and it's still further away from the bow. It's definitely better than, you know, like the sidebar bracket that your front bar mounts on and integrates into the sidebar. And I've seen many of them come loose, and it honestly, in my opinion, is just a pain. So going to the regular burger hole, that was definitely a step up, but this is even a step up from that. So no matter how hard you tighten down that screw, if this takes a good enough hit, a traditional mount can still pivot, not only change how the bow is going to hold, but also change your tune as well, because you're changing where the weights are back here. So with our integrated mount, the actual sidebar mount mounts into the riser, so there is zero chance that this is going to take a hit and actually pivot from the mounting point. Now, it can still potentially pivot up and down. I don't foresee a company getting rid of that unless they have some sort of lock screw with it, which, I mean, we could see in the future. But in general, it's a really cool mounting system. I like it quite a bit. And then new limb legs with this, because they changed up the limb pocket. If you had limb legs and you own a Mathews in the past and you're looking to get this bow, you are going to need new limb legs for it. So these are the Engage Arc limb legs, just a little bit different. They do have a little bit wider stance, so they're a little bit more stable, a little bit wider feet. So on uneven ground, that's probably going to help out just a little bit, like in a ground blind. If you got to set your bow kind of in a little hole or something like that, it's just going to help keep it more stable. And also the cool thing as well is all the bows are coming with a SCS mount that's integrated into the riser itself. So you don't have to buy the Silent Connect system mount anymore separately. And as a bow technician, honestly, that was a kind of a pain, because you had to take that thing off in order for it to fit in our OMP vices. And then after, you know, tuning and kind of setting everything up, you had to put it back on. So this is a cool feature that it is integrated into the riser itself. So other than that, I don't think I'm missing anything. There is quite a bit new on this bow. I think we covered it all. So let's move on to the Arc 30. All right, and here we have the Arc 30. So again, same new features that the 34 has. We won't go over that. We'll just go over specs real quick. So IBO rating of 348 feet per second, brace height of 6 inches, physical weight of 3.99 pounds, so same as the lift, axle length of 30 inches, same switch weight mod system, so runs from a peak weight of 55 and 5-pound increments all the way up to 80 pounds. Let off options of 80 or 85%. Draw length range from 25 to 30.5 inches. And yeah, one thing I forgot to mention too with the last one, as you obviously were able to tell already, they came out with a new color, the Kodiak Brown, which I think is pretty cool. They, from my recollection, have never done quite a brown like this. They've done tans in the past, obviously greens. So this is kind of a new color for them, which is pretty cool. So we'll probably be selling a lot of these. So anyways, yeah, so 30 inches honestly is just a good mid-range axle to axle that's going to work for most people. They've done the 29.5 for a handful of years. They dabbled with the 27, I believe that was the V3 27, and then the VXR 28, I believe. And I think that was a little too short because we didn't sell quite as many of those. It seems like most companies, when they get to that like 30-inch range, for being their short bow, we sell quite a few of those. So I think this is going to be a pretty good seller for us this year. One thing I forgot to mention too, same bond grip system as well. So you can, if you don't like the engage grip, you can try the contour and the taper grip. So the contour being kind of a little bit wider in the center, and then the taper grip being a little bit higher angle and a little bit flatter, a little bit more of a sharper edge on that grip as well. Personally, I run the side plates. I have for years, just because, and that's with any bow I've ever owned. I always go with the smallest grip option possible, just because it's more consistent in my hand. It's going to lay the same every single time for me, and that's just what I personally find to be more consistent. But other than that, one thing I will always vouch for, just make sure you go to your local dealer to try these out. If you don't have a good relationship, and I get it, before I worked here, you know, I was a customer just like you. I've had bad experiences at other shops, and even when I go to visit and check out other shops, you might not have the best experience in the world, but frankly, from the dealer standpoint, we got to support small businesses, guys. So, and not just archery shops, but small businesses in general. If you run into any issues, I know at least since COVID, and YouTube's kind of becoming a big thing where people are working on their bows, and we get it. We want you to work on your own bows. Not that we don't want to do the work for you, but if you run into a certain situation when you're on a hunt, the number one thing we will always say is we want you to get back on that hunt. So if you have the knowledge to, you know, be able to adjust your rest, or somehow be able to mess with the timing, if you say have a pulseless system or something along those lines. Regardless, if something goes wrong, if you break a limb or bust a cam, accidentally dry fire a bow, accidentally run over your bow with your car. We've seen it a handful of times. Really, there's no limits off the table. You need your local dealer to be able to get parts. Mathews and a lot of other companies are not going to ship parts straight to your house. So you need to develop a good relationship, and how you start by that is just purchasing from your local dealer. Now, if you refuse to go to your local dealer and you are in the West Michigan area, definitely give us a look. We're in West Michigan, in Allendale. If you know Grand Valley State University, we're only about a mile from there on Lake Michigan Drive. We carry pretty much most of the brands out there that you want to try in all different budgets. We don't carry just flagships. We carry plenty of midline bows and a lot of economical bows, youth bows, crossbows, whatever it is. We try to carry it. So yeah, other than that, my shameless plug here, we're going to get to the speed test. So again, we're just really looking for the efficiency in the cams and just more of a realistic speed. Now, granted, we are testing with a very light arrow, something you can definitely use for tack, but not something I would generally hunt with. But that'll give you a rough idea in comparison what's out there for 2026, how the speeds compare. Now, speed doesn't really matter a whole lot. But if you narrow it down between, say, 2 or 3 different bows, they all shoot great for you, and you're just looking for some difference out there to sway your decision one way or the other, that's kind of the reason that we do it. So you can look at the videos. We have Bowtech coming up, and then our speed test should be complete. So then you can look at that final cut at your draw length and just kind of see the comparisons and what you're going to get out of it. So anyway, without further ado, here's the speed test. All right, so we're gonna start the speed test. So just like the others, if you're watching this video for the first time, we're doing these at ATA ratings, which is gonna be 70 pounds, a 30-inch draw, and then 5 grains per pound for the arrow. So a 350 grain arrow. We'll start with the ARC 30. .335. IBO speed rating is 348, which I'm assuming is at a 80% let off as well, but 12 or 13 feet off. .336. All right, now, so the ARC 34. Speed rating for this one is 343. .326. Yikes. .328. So 327. Okay, we'll set these up to 29 inches and come back. So Drew and I set these to 29 inches. And one thing I forgot to mention too, these are the 85% mods. We just want to test all these at what the average consumer that we get here is going to shoot these at. And also, if you stick with us to the end, we're gonna test the new smooth mods, the SWX-Z mods or whatever they're called. We only got a limited supply of them, so we're gonna find mods that we have in the SWX or the SWX mods, and then the SWX-Z mods that are the same, so you can see what the speed difference is there. .328. So an 8 foot per second fall off, not too bad. .327. All right, now for the 33 or 34. It's almost like they've done a 33-inch axle for 3 years. 319. $318. So another 8 foot a second fall off. So we'll set these to 28 and come back. All right, so we set these up to 28 inches. Again, starting with arc 30. $319. Another $319. And 34. $308. $308. So an 11 feet per second loss on both ends. Or wait, no, that's 9. That's 11. Okay, so we're gonna see what we have for matching mods real quick for the new Z mods, and then come back and see what the difference is. All right, so we switched these to the SWX-Z mods, alphabet soup mods. Both of these are at 29 inches for both bows. So let's see if there's any speed loss. I think it feels smoother. 322, 328, so I lost 6 feet. Which is not terrible. $321. Now for the 33. 4. 314. So 5 feet difference. Drew's gonna have to start whipping me with an arrow every time I say 33 now. Another 314. So 5-6 feet a second loss for a smoother mod system. Really not too bad. But also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Really helps us grow things, shows that people are watching. That will give us incentive to kind of broaden this out a little bit more, kind of in the tinkering side of things, which we do plan on doing, but maybe more testing videos down the road. But drop a comment down below and tell us what you think of the new changes this year. Is it kind of what you expected? Or is it pretty much the same thing as what Mathews has been around the past couple of years? I think they changed quite a bit. I think they made pretty good improvements with the new riser system. And yeah, other than that, thank you guys for watching. As always, I'm Colton with Grand Valley Sporting Goods. We'll see you next time.